Okay, today we have a really important Cardano ADA video lined up for you. We are going to be talking about the suppression that currently goes on in relation to Cardano. We are making this video after the release of Charles Hoskinson's recent video on Hydra. Now, Hydra is a scaling solution for Cardano that could essentially see it scaling into the millions of transactions, depending on how many heads are opened and the kind of uptick that we see for it. Now, that is still something that you do have some slight usage of it, but it's nothing that's been kind of largely rolled out and implemented yet. But he made this video really talking about the criticism and the unfair treatment that Cardano gets and the perhaps misunderstanding in regards to what Cardano was actually built to do. And I want to just start by saying, I got into the cryptocurrency space obviously with Bitcoin. My first interaction with Bitcoin was in 2012. I won't explain exactly what that involved. But in 2017, I became an investor again and really fell in love with this space more broadly. And I think a lot of my perhaps conspiratorial tendencies, a lot of things don't make sense in life, certainly, not just in the Western world, but globally, probably in the Western world, they're very apparent. A lot of things didn't make sense, and actually money itself really unraveled when I started to learn about Bitcoin and stores of values and the great sort of game that is being played on people in regards to the proliferation and control of the fiat systems for your impoverishment. So I got into Bitcoin and probably more broadly crypto, suddenly initially from maybe a bit of a conspiratorial point of view, and then of course have had to learn over time about the technology, about the changes that it's bringing, about the upgrades that it's bringing to the world. It's very interesting that blockchain technology or distributed ledger technology finds itself at the forefront of most industries. We interview lots of people on this channel. We're seeing the very infrastructure that runs the internet becoming decentralized through these distributed ledgers. We're seeing identity run on distributed ledgers, blockchains. We interviewed Kilt Protocol. There's loads of use cases. We spoke to Red Swan, who are leveraging Hedera and Polygon to tokenize billions of dollars worth of commercial real estate. You name it, there's a blockchain element that's coming or involved in it. And one reason I actually got into Cardano was because of Charles Hoskinson and his kind of warnings about what was to come and how actually this entire industry was spawned out of a combatant of that. And it's kind of morphed since then into something a little bit different. There's a lot of convergence. There's a lot of kind of Judases in regards to perhaps people not staying true to the ethos of what this industry was born out of and kind of siding with the empire, if you will. However, Cardano, I do believe, has stayed true to the nature of Bitcoin. And I've always said this, I'm going to continue to say, I think it's the evolution of Bitcoin, not in the sense that it's trying to necessarily be a store of value, but in a sense that what Bitcoin brought to the world, Cardano is evolving. It's adding capabilities to, just like Ethereum came along and added smart contracts to a distributed ledger. Cardano has done the same thing, very early on the proof of stake consensus, so on and so forth. And we're going to start this video off with a number of clips. The first clip is Charles Hoskinson talking about the kind of unfair treatment that Cardano gets. And I can't help but wonder why this is, and if perhaps it has something to do with the vision and the role that Charles has always looked for Cardano to play in what is becoming an ever increasingly dystopian world that we're moving towards. And, is Cardano in some ways a combatant of that through utilizing blockchain? That's not going to be a very popular thing in regards to the powers that be. So this is going to be a really interesting video. Let's start things off by talking about the unfair advantage that Cardano seems to be getting. And then I think we've got two clips there, and then we're going to dive into actually, and this is why I like Charles, this is why I like Cardano. I don't think it's going to perform the best in terms of price. I don't. That's just my own personal opinion as a technical analyzer. I find myself in both the speculating on the price of cryptocurrency camp and believing in it. And I think you can do both. Some people, and there's a lot of people, the majority of people I would say in crypto are actually just here to speculate on the price. I don't see a problem with that. That's what we do. But I am also a massive believer in the kind of changes to the world that a distributed ledger can bring. We've seen it thus far. I mean, look at how much of an amazing success Bitcoin has been. Other areas outside of money are centralized and need changing, and you can do these with these layer one smart contracts. But let's start by talking about the kind of unfair advantage or unfair treatment that Cardano gets. And then we're going to dive into, what's really going on here and what Cardano is really trying to do.
You show all this evidence to the people purveying this misinformation, and they say none of that exists. It's all a lie. It's all a misunderstanding. It's and when you get to that point, it's almost like politics, and it feels a little bit disingenuous. It feels like people are actually going out of their way to lie. The other thing is people are starting to lie with numbers. For example, we see, oh, Solana has 11,000 times more transactions. Well, they never mention like 90% plus of all the transactions in the system are related to consensus overhead or other such things that have nothing to do with economic activity. Yes, there is a higher TVL, but then there was also an enormous pre-mine. And what? That's just all sitting in accounts. It's not being utilized and deployed into the system. I want people to actually believe that. Okay, it's the same for a lot of these VC-backed coins. They gave themselves big allotments of cryptocurrency, and they take it and they put it into their TVL, and they generate yield from that. Then they have their own market makers and their own people doing things to create basically economic activity. Make profits, then they reinvest those profits into astroturfing adoption. Sure, we could take half the market cap of Cardano and take $10 billion and mint it in ADA or something and put it into TVL, and then we'd have one of the highest TVLs in the entire ecosystem. There you go. It's not really a reflection of organic growth now, is it? Meanwhile, Cardano's had enormous organic growth, and not only is it ignored, in many cases they leave it off of the indices. That's where it gets really confusing to me, where you actually have positive numbers. You go to the indexes that track these things and you say, why is Cardano not listed? Well, we don't list Cardano. But why? You just saw Gemini today. They say, tell us your favorite cryptocurrency, not you ADA people. Okay, so why ask the question then?
You know, I think we all noticed that. If you Cardano is probably the most organically growing blockchain that there is, period, outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum potentially initially. You know, it's really third there. It's totally organic. It's not necessarily VC funded. Really, there are VCs involved, and VCs aren't just evil in every case. VCs are actually a vital part of any market. You know, projects need money. These VCs are willing to put their capital on the line. Obviously, they want returns. Some are better than others. And actually, I know projects within the Cardano ecosystem that have fallen victim to VCs themselves, but I won't go into that. But there is a huge unfairness when it comes to Cardano and the treatment that it gets. And I actually saw that Gemini tweet and thought, like, I don't really understand that. But I think I do in the sense that it's just popular to troll Cardano. And it's always trolled by people that really haven't got a clue. Let's play the second little bit of that in regards to the unfair treatment. And then we're going to talk about what is really going on here and what Cardano is really trying to do.
Why are we excluded from even participating? Polls come out and they leave all the Cardano projects off. You're not even allowed to vote on them. It's not whether we win or lose, or it's a good poll or a bad poll, a fair election, not a fair election. You're not even allowed to vote in many cases for these things. We're left off the list. So there's something there, and maybe it's fear.
So I want to pick up on what Charles Hoskinson said there at the end. Maybe it's fear that sees the kind of unwarranted treatment of Cardano. So again, I want to stress this. I like blockchains for different reasons. I like Cardano because of its true to the kind of spawning of this industry's ethos, you know, in regards to decentralization, putting sovereignty back. It's my own personal belief that if you try and put equality before sovereignty, you end up with neither. If you put liberty and uphold people's liberty and sovereignty, you'll end up with the best. You put that before equality, you'll end up with the best form of equality we can hope for in what is unfortunately an unfair world. If you do it vice versa, I think you end up with neither, because this kind of idea of equality always really involves taking from one person and giving to another. Well, who is that fair on? The person you're taking from, the person that's receiving, and then those roles can, you know, you've got to sort of uphold sovereignty before everything. And that's what blockchains or the initial idea of Bitcoin was, to give people a right to not only checking what's going on, but holding their own currency, being their own bank. And I do believe Cardano is trying to further that with things like identity and stuff like that. Let's play this last little clip talking about, you know, what are these people perhaps afraid of? Because this is a good one. This is a really important video. We will be doing a price update, kind of contradictory with saying that. But again, I find myself in both camps comfortably. Let's play the last clip and then we'll wrap the video up.
Maybe this is the fight of our generation. Every generation has one, And sometimes they're very explicit and kinetic. They're wars. And other ones, they have generations about culture, about meaning and purpose and human rights. The 21st century, the social contracts of the world are going to be renegotiated, whether we like it or not. And every single one of us has to have an opinion about how we ought to live in the future. Too much is changing too quickly. They got scientists working on designer babies in China. You got all kinds of wonders and horrors in synthetic biology occurring. AI is advancing at an uncomfortably exponential rate. You have nanomaterials that are wondrous and horrifying. You got robots and drones being mass manufactured that will start displacing tens of millions, eventually billions of jobs. And 1,000 other things that are happening. Do you for a moment think that the social contract of society is going to stay exactly the same? Capitalism is going to stay exactly the same. Our money systems are going to stay exactly the same. The way you vote and express yourself is going to stay exactly the same. Why do you think every crackpot dictator and fascist wants to restrict free speech and expression and tell you what to think, how to think, what's legitimate, what's normal, and what's not? They even use it in the language now, normalizing. In other words, we decide what's normal. You don't get to do that. And anyone who opposes a conspiracy theorist or an anarchist or whatever pejorative label you put on, and who even comes up with these labels? Who gets to decide? It's not you. It's not me. It's somebody you've never met. And you can't vote out of power. And anytime you oppose them, you get the labels. That's the world we're moving towards, and it's going to be reinforced with algorithmic governance. AI is going to be in every aspect of your life, and you live in a panopticon. Every place you go, you're on camera. Everything you do is recorded. And you know what? CBDCs will come. This entire industry is a counter-revolution against what is coming. But all you care about is numbers go up? You're going to sell your soul for 100 pieces of silver? That's what you're going to do? Then you tell me, how are you going to live well when all of your jobs have been taken by robots and cognitive agents? All the knowledge jobs are gone because I can pay 5 pennies an hour of electrical and compute cost to run something that did what you did in your job. How are you going to live well when you go to the gas station to pump your gas into your car? It tells you you're not allowed to buy anymore because you've already gone over your allotment, and now you have no fuel in your tank. And you're on hold on your phone to get an exemption and beg for permission to be able to drive your car home. How are you going to live well when everything you put in your body and all of your health care is completely decided by people you've never met and you have no say in the matter? And if you reject it, your ability to travel and your ability to get employed and interact in society is restricted. It's here. It's being implemented real time in China. It's being implemented real time in Europe. And in the United States, they've been pushing it in various different contexts. And you know what? Every time you have a financial crisis, it allows us to move the window a little bit further ahead. Every time we have a big war, it allows us to move the window just a little bit further ahead towards that type of reality, because that's how you control 8 billion people. And again, the point of crypto was an alternative governance model where we reduce the power of governments and corporations, we get rid of middlemen, and we put you in charge of your own life. What's the price of that and the value of that?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we continue to back Cardano for that vision entirely. Again, we don't think it's going to do the best in this bull market from a return on investment point of view. I don't, plain and simple. And Cardano isn't my biggest crypto holding, but it's a cryptocurrency that I support, I do hold, and I've been running a stake pool, helping to run this network since, I think, 2021. So nearly 4 years now. And if you want to support me in a little way and help to stake and get rewards, do check out the ALLIN pool. That's my official pool. We will be looking to do a lot more with that when the sort of governance side of things really turns on for stake pools. But that's all from me, guys. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section. Fantastic video from Charles. We'll leave a link to that also in the description so you can watch the full thing. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a magic Monday, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.